So Valve dropped an update yesterday addressing a few issues and inconsistencies with jumping, but as an unfortunate side effect of this, a lot of jump throw lineups aren't working anymore, and I've spent all day looking around trying to figure out which smokes need new lineups. So I've gone ahead and included all of that in this one video. But before we get started, I want to thank today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. So, SkinsMonkey is an automated CS2 trading site that provides an instant way for you to get new skins. All you have to do is select your old skins that you don't want anymore and then pick out some fresh ones to trade for. It's as easy as that. And right now you could get a free $5 if you use code TACTICS on the site. And finally, you could get up to a 35% deposit bonus when using my code. So thanks again to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video. Links in the description. So let's go ahead and talk about Mirage. So I would say one of the most impactful smokes that is no longer hitting would have to be the good old stair smoke from this position right here. Most professional players were throwing a jungle stair setup by left clicking at the top of this brick and then doing a left and right click jump throw at this little T. And if we look at Refrag's predictor model, it's still expecting the old trajectory and it's saying it would land right here on top. But if we throw it by doing a left and right click jump throw, well, it's gonna land right here in the middle of sandwich, which is definitely not what we want. But luckily, this is a pretty easy fix. From the same spot, you're gonna pretty much use the same lineup, you're just gonna aim a little bit lower. So down to about here and do the same thing. And as you can see, it's gonna bounce off the brick and we want it to land as close to the edge as possible so that the smoke goes way over here to the left and doesn't spill down into sandwich. So again, no problem, you can still throw that same set, you're just gonna have to aim a little bit lower. Now, I went through testing the instant smokes on Mirage for window, and most of them still work. For example, this one works absolutely fine, and so does this one right here. As you can see, they're not gonna have any issue landing right inside of the window. I'll go ahead and turn on the trajectory so we can actually see. But yeah, these are both landing here. But moving on to the next lineup down the list right here, this one is no longer hitting. It's going a little bit too high, and it's banking off the top middle of this window like that. So you have to do a little bit of an adjustment. So for this one, before you would aim right at this little design right here, I just go all the way up to this position here. Actually, I think this one may be a little bit better. So this square right here on the pattern and do a W jump throw. And that should land absolutely perfect. Now, it is gonna be a little more left than some of the other ones, but I like the way this one lands because it doesn't allow any sort of gap if you jump up on top of the sawhorse, as you can see. If you jump up here, you're definitely not gonna be able to see anything. The other one goes a little bit further right, and it can kind of span over the top of it. So I definitely prefer throwing it at that. So that is certainly the new way to throw this smoke. The next position over, I believe, does still work. It's this little swirl smoke. We'll double check, make sure. I believe this one is totally fine, as you can see. And then finally, this last instant smoke lineup from right here, before you would go from this over to these little scratch marks and do a W jump throw. Well, unfortunately, this one also does not work. It's gonna hit that top of the window, as you can see. So the way that I found to do this is instead of aiming at those scratch marks, you're gonna go up to this little dark spot right here. So I just basically do the same thing, go up to here and do a W jump throw. And maybe someone will find an easier lineup that you can see visually, but this one seems to work just fine for me. So that's how I am throwing these as of now. And luckily, nothing else has really changed as far as like window or door or throwing all like, you know, the B-site smokes. These all seem fine, which I'm not even a huge fan of these lineups anyways, because this one's kind of lurky. But either way, this stuff is still working out fine. So I really think the only things you're gonna have to worry about are the instant window smokes for Mirage. All the others seem fine. I've seen some people complaining about the old way. Some methods that people smoke connector are not working. The way that I've always thrown it is totally fine. You just go into this corner right here, and you're gonna do a jump throw at the top of this little step right here on the rug, and that is gonna land just fine. It'll land kind of on this like first, second step right here, and should expand all the way up to the top, no problem. So if you need to throw it that way, I would recommend it. But either way, I think that's pretty much everything for Mirage that you're gonna need to know. So let's move on to the next map. So I've noticed quite a few coffin smokes are not working anymore. A lot of people would go like to a position like this and do maybe a jump throw at the board. And as you can see here, that should be landing, you know, on the old patch, it should have landed here, no problem. But now it's kind of hitting this plank here and going straight down. So it's not landing where you would want it. I still think the best coffin smoke by far is just going all the way up into this corner and doing a jump throw in the bottom of this thing right here. And that is essentially going to go all the way up here. It's gonna bank off the back wall, and it's gonna land on top of this piece of the sandbag, and it's gonna fully smoke off coffin all the way to the gap, and it also makes to where they can't stand in this jump up position and see through. So I recommend just throwing that coffin smoke. If you threw any other variation, it's probably not working now. So just switch to this, it's pretty easy. Also for the boost smokes, I know some people would do weird ways where they would like go here and like do a jump through in the middle of the E and the R. That sometimes still works, but I have had a few times where it doesn't. In this case, yeah, it's falling off. It's just got a little bit too much speed on it. So what I recommend doing is just going right here in the middle of the gas line and just doing a simple left click throw between the tip of this and the wire. So just right to about here and just doing a left click throw. And that should bank off the side here, land up top, and it lands pretty close to the middle to where they can't go all the way forward. They're not able to like get up an inch in front of this. So it's a pretty good one. I'd recommend just taking those jump throws completely out of the picture and doing a left click for this right here. As far as A-side's concerned, a lot of these I would throw were just left clicks. Like for example, the good old fashioned moto smoke, just a left click. So that's not gonna be changed up at all. And just of course smoking the left side. Every now and then from all the way back here, I would end up smoking off library by doing a jump throw at this kind of darker portion of the wire. This still seems to work, although it does land a bit differently. Used to, it would actually pop up on top of this table, making it a little bit bigger. Now it falls off, and I think it doesn't really spread as far. This seems fine though. This seems absolutely fine. The trajectory is different, but that is still a fantastic library smoke, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Most of your other smokes for A-site seem totally fine. I haven't tested my arch smoke, or this is, I believe this is Wraith's arch smoke, where you do a left and right click jump throw right here. I imagine this will also be fine. It seems like it would be forgiving. Yeah, no problem. So I don't think much has changed on A-site. You know, if you run into something, let me know in the comments. I'm definitely trying to keep tabs of this in my Discord and just try to, you know, post and show as many changes that we possibly can, but overall I think A-site is fairly safe. If you throw a lot of stuff from like over here, I could see that being different, but most of the time now I'm throwing most of my utility from this side and it all seems to be just fine. Now, I did check. It seems like most of your Dust 2 smokes are just fine. This is how I usually will smoke Xbox, from here, or I'll go to this corner and aim right here and do a jump throw. And both of these seem to be landing as you would expect. Really no issue. This is landing up here. Smoking, no problem. Also, the door smoke, I think a lot of people would throw it by going right here into the middle of this crack, just kind of lining up with that, standing up and doing a jump throw right on this. And this should end up landing and expanding all the way up to the top. I think it's still just as consistent as before, as you can see. It's filling all the way up to the top here, so that seems to be working. Maybe a little more, I don't know, that seems like there could almost be a gap spotted through that, so I don't know. I mean, it seems fine. There may be a better way to go about doing this now, but either way, it seems like most everything that I've tried on Dust 2 is about the exact same. The corner smokes, the B smokes might be a little different if you ended up throwing them like this. Like sometimes I would throw the B smokes by doing this and doing this. I think these are a little less consistent now. I'm curious. I think this is probably gonna land fine. Yeah, that's still expanding down. This one's still landing up here. So yeah, I mean, overall, it seems like most things are unchanged on Dust 2. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next map. Now, when it comes to Ancient, most of the instant red smokes are just fine. Like this one's fine. The far right spawn is fine, but this spawn right here is a little different now. Used to, you would do a W jump throw right here at this, and unfortunately, it is going a little bit too high, so it's hitting this middle step and landing right here. And so how I recommend throwing this now is instead of aiming at this line here, you're gonna aim down at this leaf and do a W jump throw. And that should land perfectly. I did flinch my mouse a little bit, but yeah, it landed absolutely fine. And that's how I'd recommend it. Just aim it at that little leaf down there. I'll show it one more time just in case I was too fast. But just aiming right here at this leaf is totally fine. It's not precise enough to where the wind's gonna make a difference, but yeah, should be totally fine. And on CT side, all of the insta smokes are fine. I'll just go ahead and throw them really quickly to prove it. If you don't know them, you can always pause this and learn it from this video or any of the other like million videos I've made on this topic. Yeah, all of these seem to be hitting just fine. I'm doing this as fast as I can while I yap, so if I actually hit all of these without messing up, I'll be like somewhat surprised, but let's see. Did I hit them all? Yeah, I sure did. Every single one of them landed an elbow, no problem, all while yapping. So yeah, this one might have gone out a little bit more than it should have, but overall, they're totally fine. I've thrown all of these, there's no misses. Seems to be a-okay, guys. So the instant CT smokes, you're gonna be all right. Now, I could see a couple of the jump throws from back here, you know, causing a few issues. The way that I usually throw the execute smokes for B is like from this door right here. I'll just left click up at the top left of this plant, and that's my short smoke. And for long, I'll typically be, a lot of times I'm like someone watching shelf, and as we're about to push out, I'll go into this corner and just left click into this little gap in the mountain. And that's a lot of times how I'll throw the execute smokes for B. So those are good alternatives if the jump throw that you're using isn't working anymore, but overall, I think those should be totally fine. So yeah. All of the A-site smokes worked great from what I tested. I think the only smoke that is still pretty heavily affected, I used to throw the B lurk smoke by going right here and doing a W jump throw at the top of this little like grid. Now that thing's going a little bit too far. It's going a little bit too far up and leaving a nice little gap. And some of the other smokes that I would see pros throwing are also leaving gaps. The best one that I've seen that is still working is where you basically go right here into this little crack, and you're gonna do a W jump throw at like the front portion of this brick. And that should land just fine. That one is still landing pretty much on the dead middle there and working as a great B pressure smoke. So I'll actually fly over here and we'll take a look and make sure there's no gaps, but I'm fairly certain that this one is gonna work just fine, as you can see. No gap on either side. Denies a lot of that early line of sight to where you can get on site, start planning before they're able to take those fights. Very, very good smoke that's gonna bait out a good bit of utility from the CTs. So moving on over to Nuke, most of your lineups are going to be about the same. For just like the normal long cross smokes or the outside cross smokes, you can just do a simple jump throw right here and a simple jump throw right here, just like before. And at first I was worried that these would be going a little bit too far, but it looks perfectly fine in my opinion. These are going to land just a-okay, no gaps as you can see. This one definitely does go a little bit further out, but seems just fine to me. And then as far as the slant smokes are concerned, these are also fine. I generally throw them by going right here, and I'll do a regular jump throw on the right side of the light, and then on the top of the railing. And before, I would go out to the left here like this and do a simple jump throw for a top mini smoke. The top mini smoke seems to not be working as consistently. As you can see, slant smoke's perfectly fine. The top mini smoke, I don't know if that's gonna go down, as you can see. So slant smokes are fine, top mini from there, maybe not so great. But the original lineup that most people were throwing at the beginning, where you get stuck into this corner and you go up from the corner up to the top of the rail and do a basic jump throw, that seems to be working just fine. So I recommend just sticking to that. But yeah, everything else, I've done quite a bit of testing on like the inner hit, like the Vinny smoke seems to be fine, where you don't have to break the glass, you just go right here and jump throw right here. That seems to be going fine, as well as the like vent dive smoke that I throw a lot. This one also seems to be, is it this? I can't remember which one it is actually, but anyways, I don't play Nuke all that often, but the Vinny smoke seems fine, and so does the vent dive. As you can see, no issue right there. We hit it, no problem. So yeah, overall, I think you're pretty much good if you play Nuke. The one thing, if you throw that 3 smoke set where it's bleeding down, you may miss that one every now and then, but overall, I think you're okay if you're a Nuke player. So moving on to Vertigo, I would say most of B sites stayed the exact same, but there are a few changes on A. And the most notable is the fact that these waterfall elevator smokes that I used to throw, where you go up from this light to the bar, do a jump throw, these things are not stopping in the tiles, they're going all the way out the back and landing here for a pretty bad smoke, leaving a massive gap here. So instead, what I recommend doing is just going into this corner and doing a simple left click throw right here. Right, it's gonna bank off of this yellow crane, and it's gonna land right here in the middle. And this is super forgiving. Like, you don't even have to be in that corner. Like, you could probably be standing like anywhere in this region, and that same lineup is gonna work just fine. As you can see, this thing's gonna land right here in the middle and completely smoke it off. And the deeper the better, so that it's not as lurky, but as you can see, a pretty good smoke. Nice little alternative. And finally, one thing that's just worth mentioning, this lineup still works. One of my favorite lineups to throw was a W jump throw at the bottom of this corner. And I think it still works if you aim right here along the trim. Should have no issue hitting. I love this one because it gets heaven, it gets the doorway, and it'll kind of spread out to cause them where they kind of have to go out here to scaffolding. They can't, it disrupts rotates. It's a really good molly. However, it was very forgiving, so a lot of times I would just like super quickly throw it, and I would often be too high. And if you're just barely too high now, that thing's gonna end up hitting the steel beam and banking off the back. So I think for good measure, just aim like a little bit below the white thing, and it seems to be fine. That lighter little strip seems to hit just fine. So anyways, I would say just go a little bit lower on that one just to avoid the risk of actually hitting that beam. But overall, everything else seems to be the exact same, so I wouldn't worry too much about Vertigo. Everything seems to be fine, but definitely, you know, instead of throwing that waterfall smoke, I would recommend just doing an old left click from the corner, and you're gonna be in good shape. And finally, we'll end off on Anubis. Your basic smokes are still gonna work just fine, right? Your house smoke, your basic E-box smoke, even the deep E-box smoke, all of these are working a-okay. So I wouldn't worry too much about these. The A-site smoke seems fine as well, so I'm not too worried about that. The only thing that I noticed now is my favorite utility set was one I learned from Zywoo, where you get stuck right here, and you aim at the middle of this and do a jump throw for a heaven smoke, and you aim right here for a backside Molotov. Now, if you're just like a slight bit to the right, this thing seems to be missing, and that may have always been the case. I may just be dumb. But either way, aiming a little bit to the left of this is definitely the move now. It should hit just fine. And now if you aim right at this ridge as before, it's actually not gonna hit. It's going a little too high and it's missing. So what I do is instead of aiming right at this, I go in between this little ridge and this one originally right here and do a basic jump throw, and that hits every single time. So you still have your nice little A sight utility combo. So yeah, I think this is totally fine. You can still take sight, just a minor adjustment to the lineup. I also saw a lot of people saying that this mid-molly on Anubis isn't working as well, the one outside of doors. I see most professional players, like Alexi B, go up along this strap and just do a little slight W tap to where they're right on the edge of the box, and they'll generally do a jump throw right here at this bracket. I think if you're too high, it will miss, so just make sure that you're maybe on the lower side of it, I suppose, and just do a simple jump throw, and I mean, that's gonna hit still very consistently. The one thing about this molly, though, I think the reason the pros prefer it is because it doesn't leave much room right here to where they can hide up close. A lot of times on pistol rounds, that's a really powerful position for like 5.7s and that sort of thing, but it will often still leave a gap all the way in the back. So, you know, making sure you're properly flashing and clearing that out is still important. But to me, that molly still seems completely fine. And of course, the other one as well, a lot of people will just go right here, just left click in the top right of this. And of course, that's just a regular left click throw. It still works. So whatever you're more comfortable with, just run it. But I definitely prefer the version that spreads all the way up to here, but again, it's all down to personal preference. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. I'm sure I missed a few things. There's probably some very niche pieces of utility that are no longer working as well, so if you want to share those with me, feel free to join my Discord. The link's down in the description, and share it in one of the channels. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one, but first, I do want to thank all of my channel members that are on screen right now. Thank you guys for letting me do what I do every single day. I really appreciate it.